Shalom. I'm Susan Hagee with Abundant Hope International, and I have a very special interview for you today. We are here with Arie Itamar. He is a man who can tell us about the amazing ship of the Exodus 1947. And so I pray that you will listen, really listen to every word that he has to say. It's something that I know you haven't heard before.
So, thank you to the ladies which introduced me. As you heard, my name is Arie Itamar, and I will tell you the story of Holocaust on the side from the Holocaust stories of the Soviet Union Jewish people. And I will start at my birthplace. I was born in Odessa, which was a city which the Jewish population was the first in this city. More than Russian or Ukrainians. Many interesting personalities come from Odessa, like our national poet, Bialik, another poet, Chernyakhovsky, Shalom Aleichem, which has performed the big performance about the fiddler on the roof, and other very famous, important people in Jewish community, in Zionist movement, and so on. So I was born there, 1938, December. My father was a lieutenant. He was officer in the Soviet Navy, and my mother was a bookkeeper in a factory which was producing shoes, mainly to the army. When the war started, as you know, 2 years later than in other parts of Europe, in 1941, my father was a paramedic, therefore he was immediately sent to the front. He left the ship, he wasn't anymore in the Navy. He was sent to a field hospital, which was on the Western Front, near Smolensk city, and his unit managed to escape from the German occupation, to retreat to the Moscow, the suburb of Moscow, let us say so, and his field hospital was situated about 70 kilometers southwest of Moscow in a defense area. And all the field hospital, it was attached to an anti-aircraft regiment, this field hospital. And when they managed to stop the German invasion around Moscow, in October 1941, the Germans do not succeeded to take Moscow. They wanted very much, but the soldiers who stand on the defense, they prevent them to give. In the 5th of December 1941, the Red Army opened a counterattack, and it was very difficult battle around Moscow. Many places go from side to side, and more than 1 million Soviet soldiers died in this battle, which is known as the biggest one in the history. My father also, he was killed in January 1942. I was 3 years old, and as I know that this battle, it was the first time after the Germans had making victory parades in the big cities of Europe, in Paris or in Brussels and so on. It was the first time when Germans not only were stopped, but also ran away from the battlefield. This was a big psychological achievement, but for a very high price, and my father also, our family, we paid this price. At that time, my mother was also mobilized to the army, but her job was to transfer factories from areas which were in danger to be taken by the German to Central Asia. It was her job. I remained in Odessa with my grandmother, mother of my father. And Odessa was surrendered by the Romanian forces, which were allies of the Nazis, of the German. Romanian border is close to Odessa, 60, 70 kilometers. And Romanian troops were surrounding Odessa for several months. My grandmother managed to take me and to push ourselves into the last train which escaped from the siege of the Romanian forces. The train break the way by fire. There were soldiers fighting with the Romanians, and I was wounded at that travel. My grandmother lay herself on me to protect me from the bullets, from the pieces of glass, but we managed to escape. We managed to escape. We have some interruption in a small village near Moscow. My mother joined us at that place, and we continue to Central Asia. First for a few months in Samarkand in the Uzbekistan, and then final stop was in Tajikistan, in the capital, which at that time, today it is called Dushanbe. At that time it was called Stalinbad, the city of Stalin. And all the refugees, there were many refugees from Poland, Jewish, and all refugees were placed in the cinema hall of the city. Many of them lived together in the cinema. We, because my mother started to be a bookkeeper of a factory which produced railways, which was a security, it was a military factory. She was bookkeeper, so we have an advantage, and we have the cashier box of this cinema hall, a very small place, which we all were, me, my mother, my grandmother. As the time passed, at that city, we got the announcement that my father was killed on the battlefield. Some people from the Soviet Defense Ministry, a soldier, 2 soldiers arrived and give us the announcement, and well, it was very sad. But time passed, and my mother started to know a Jewish refugee from Poland. And after some time she married him. I remember that my grandmother was very angry with this from some time, but she adapt herself, and I also has to adapt myself to the new situation. And also I have a new sister. From the time I was sent to a children garden of some pioneers, communists. The atmosphere was terrible. Also anti-Semitic expressions from the children in the children garden. And it was a bad time, let us say so. But the war came to its end, 8-9 of May 1945. There was parade, big parade in Stalingrad, victory, end of war, everyone was happy. Now there was a tradition among soldiers, even in the time of the war, which arrived to some kind of vacation, to meet family. And if they have children, it was a tradition to order from a tailor a small uniform, exactly a copy of the uniform of the father of the soldier, and to give it to, of course, I have nobody to give me such a uniform, and I was very jealous and angry with that. At the day of victory, one of the children, an arrogant boy with such a uniform, arrived and he told me, look, my father come back, you see, my uniform. Your father will not. I turned my back, I come into the cashier, I closed the door, I closed the windows, I put my figures. I do not want to hear no parade, no music, no victory was interest. For 3 days it was so. But life is going on, and then my stepfather, he was Zionist. My mother was not. She has some sympathy to the communists, but she was not member. She did not want to be a member of the party, although she was, there were people official which tried to mobilize her, but she refused. She wanted to stay not in the party. But she was not Zionist. My stepfather was a Zionist, and he decided that we are going to Israel. We have nothing to do in Europe. We have nothing to do here as refugees in Central Asia, and also in Europe, nobody wants us. He was right, of course. We want to go back. Well, it was a big problem because the British mandate do not want Jewish refugees to come. There was the policy of the White Book from 1939, which limited the entrance of Jewish people to Israel. So the British do not want it. The Soviet authorities also, they do not want us to go to Israel. Stalin ordered, give permission to all refugees from East European countries, which are under Soviet control, like Poland, Lithuania, or Romania. They can go back to their countries, but not further, not to Israel, not to France, not to any other place. So the problem was how to say that we are going only to Poland. He has, my stepfather has a Polish passport. Now there was an organization which is called the Escape, Jewish organization, which was composed of people which were fighting in the ghettos or in the forest, partisans, people from Israel which were sent to Europe, and the Jewish brigade in the British Army. They joined together, about 600 people, to an organization which called the Escape. They organized convoys from many parts of Europe and Asia of people like we to bring them to first to Poland or to other countries and then to Germany, to the military occupation zone of the Americans. There was displaced camps in this area for the refugees, for Jewish refugees mainly. Now the people are very efficient. They stole equipment, food, trucks. They even stole trains to take people. They were very, very efficient. And one of their jobs, which are connected also to us, was to do false documents, like passports and so on. Now, I was at that time, 45, 46, I was 7.5 years old. Now, my mother, as a wife of a Polish citizen, she has also a Polish passport. My sister was daughter of my stepfather. She is Polish, but I have no Polish passport. I was a Soviet citizen from both sides, and they have no permission to take me out of the Soviet Union. I had to stay in the orphanage of the KGB, a terrible, terrible institution. So they asked the Escape movement. They have a special laboratory to prepare false documents. And they prepared for me a document, a new birth document. They make me younger in 2 years. Then I was really, so they make me 5. And the problem was that although I remember my father, but I do not know until 5 years ago that I am elder 2 years than my identity, Israeli identity card is written that I was born in 1940. Because this was my documents, and I have no idea. Only when I have done a research in Odessa, some men, historians, helped me. They find many documents, including my birth document. And then in my birth documents, it was in 1916 only, which I started to know that I am 2 years older than the age written in my passport, in my identity card. Also, there wasn't, my grandmother was angry, and they offered them, my mother and my stepfather offered her to come with us also, but she said no, my son is buried in this land, I am not going to any place, I am staying here. And so we lost the contact with her. And also they thought that I have forgotten everything. My age, yes, I do not know, but I have not forgotten my father. And they thought that I have forgotten everything, so they never speaking with me about my father, never. And I know, but I know it was a very delicate problem. I know, but I have no right to speak about this, because if I speak, they realize that I remember. Is that all this? It was a mistake. I sure it was not from a bad wish. They wanted to protect me. They wanted, maybe they say, I have forgotten, so everything is okay. I know that if they know a little more about education and they have some psychologists to advise them, they wouldn't do so. They would tell me about my father. But at this time, you know, after war, who knows about psychology? So, but I know. And I will jump some years forward to take you how my mother realized that I know. It was in the 80s. My stepfather was dead from a long time. He died in 74. And my mother was living in Jerusalem, and there was a burglary. The thieves break the door and they take many things. Me and my children, we come to help my mother to arrange the home back. And now she told my children, you know, when we were living in Stalinbad, there was a burglary to our house. But Arie do not remember nothing. I say, look, mother, you know what items had been sold in Stalinbad? Boots, cans of food, and so I make her a list, a complete list of all things which has been. She becomes silent. Now I told my children, you go home, leave us alone. Now I said, my mother, now tell me everything. And she told me, you know, I know that one day you will come and ask me this question. And she now opened, first of all, she gave me this photo of their wedding, of my father and my mother. And then she told me about our family, about my grandfather, which has also a very special story. I will not, it is not for now. And so everything was exposed. And I told it also to my children and so on. They were very, very excited. And there is a man in Russia. I'm making some side route from the main story. Is okay? Now this is the fabricated document, a photo which I have from my Polish passport, which the escape movement has arranged. Now, at the time past, I do not know anything. My mother, I asked my mother, I just want to find the photo. If it is not here, maybe it is here. I asked my mother about where he was died. What I told you about, just a moment. What I told you about his fight near Moscow, this is just a new information also. And this is connected with a March of Life. If I do not find it, I will show you it. It's here. Oh, just a moment. In 2-3 years ago, arrived here in Israel a group from Germany, which was called the March of Life. And they show a performance about Exodus. I will come to it later when I go to Exodus. And I was friendly with them. They invited me to a conference in Germany in 2019, February, 3 years ago. I arrived there And I told them my story with all the details, including Exodus. They showed the performance about Exodus again, beautiful. After I finished, many people come to me and speak with me. One of them, and this is an organization not only from Germany, they have members in many countries, also in England. One of them, he presented himself as the member of March of Life in Russia, Finland and Russia. He is a Finnish in nationality, but there is a Finnish minority in north of Russia. He is Russian citizen, but how can I help you? So I told him, look, I have find from Odessa about my father that he didn't die in Smolensk area, what my mother thought, but near Moscow. But I have no other information. Nothing where his grave war, where was he fighting the place, nothing. If you find for me this information, I will be very happy. And he find the place where the mass grave of the field hospital was, near Moscow. And also there is a monument with the names of the victims. My father was not in this monument, so he worked in front of the municipality of this area, and they, 2 years ago, they attached the name of my father to this monument. I want to see, I wonder why I have no, here the photos of this. Just a moment, I will try to. Well, later I have it scanned in a computer. So there was a small ceremony. I wasn't able to go because it was the corona and everything was closed. Flights was not allowed to Russia. And so there was a small ceremony. The people of this area, they attached the name of my father to the monument where near the mass grave of the field hospital, which he was there. Now I will continue. We boarded a train, a cargo train, in Dushanbe, in Stalinbad. It was April 46. 11 months after the end of the war, we boarded this train. The conditions were not good. It was not a passenger train, it was a cargo. But I was fascinated from the views which I have seen. I was attached to the window all the time. It was difficult because the window in a cargo train is up, so I have to put some straw packages, and to stand up. All the time I was looking at the changes of the view from desert to lake to the Volga it was when all the time until we reached the Volga River, it was a geologist. And I think that the root of my profession is in this travel, because I was so attracted by the universe, by the view, that I remember when we arrived in Israel, finally, the first book which my mother bought me, I will show you, was a Soviet atlas. Soviet atlas. Because I know Russian, I know Hebrew also, but this they find because I was a boy in the second primary school only, although 2 years elder, I do not know that. But a boy in the second class, nobody was interested in geography, nobody. Only me. And so when I was grown up, I understand that geography is not enough. I want the logic of the earth, the geology. So I remember a very special moment in this travel when, now the train, it was a very strange travel. The train was traveling forward for a week and staying in one place or again another week, sometimes going back. Who knows? The leader of the escape movement, which was the leader of the convoy, he knows, but he was secretly, he has to hide himself because the Soviet authorities, if they find him, they send him immediately to Siberia. So we didn't know what happened. I remember an event then, if the train was staying in the morning, people go down with, the tea pots, and they go to take hot water from the, how do you say in English, this which is carrying the train, the locomotive. They go, it was on a vapor, so they take hot water. I remember that one day, some of the people, including my stepfather, he jumped down and go to take hot water. But as they wanted to go back, the train started to move. And about 20 people remain outside. And in that times, who knows what will happen? How long it will take if we even met them? No, after a week, all the lost people, including my stepfather, arrived in an open train which was carrying coal. All of them were black on the faces and the hand because of the coal dust, but they washed themselves, and we continue. Another episode was that one night the train stopped in some place, was dark. I get up in the morning early, the first one, when the light started, I go down, and I feel the smell of water. I started to walk, and I see a big water body. Very difficult to see the other side, a big river, something which I never imagined. I have never seen this. So I find one of the railway people, workers. I asked him, hey, tell me, what is this water? He told me, don't you know, this is the Volga, the biggest river of Mother Volga of Russia. I've seen many sheep and boats and traveling the water goes slowly. It's flat, beautiful sight. However, when we crossed the Volga and we started to move in the European Soviet Union, there was no anymore such views, terrible views. Ruined villages, cities, people with torn clothes, burned fields, terrible sights. We passed through Stalingrad, which was famous in the fight which was there. terrible sight. No, nothing remained of the city, nothing. Only one house, I think, maybe stayed. And so it continued. When we entered Ukraine, the city of Kharkov and then Kiev, and everything was terribly ruined, and people are walking desperate, do not know where to go, how to go. And when we arrived the Polish border, the train was moving slowly, slowly. And there were some people which they decided to go down and to find their house, maybe family. It was a big problem. The train was moving, so they throw their few equipment down, jump down, collect it, and go to find the place which they were living before the war. They find Polish people standing with guns and tell them, if you do not go away immediately, we shall finish what Hitler started. So, no house, no family, nothing. They go back to the train. My stepfather do not wanted to hear about it. They say, I'm not going to look after anything. He knows that the family was finished. We are going to Israel, we are not staying in Poland anymore. The train moved along the northern shore of Poland at the Baltic Sea. And we arrived to in front of a city called Stettin, which was double. Before the war, it was inhabited both by Poland and Germans. It was some dual government in this city. Everything was ruined completely, like Stalingrad. The train stopped and we children go out. I have seen near the railway toys, abandoned, broken. And I asked myself, where are the children which the toy belonged to them? Are they alive? Are they dead? Where are their parents? What happened to them? Difficult questions for a child of 7.5 years old. So we were placed in this, near the city, near Stettin, in some houses. We were placed in a ranch with the old German woman was there. We have no contact with her, but nobody disturbed each other. After a few days arrived a man which presented himself as somebody which was sent from Israel, from the organizations here. He will be the leader of a convoy. He arranged us, about 40 people, and we started to go by foot from northern Poland to the border of Czechoslovakia, about 400 kilometers. It was impossible to cross directly to Germany because it was under Soviet control. We have to reach the American area, and we have to do it only in a long bypass, going south first to Czechoslovakia and then Austria and southern part of Germany. So we started to go. It was a travel very difficult because my mother carried a big backpack. My stepfather and my sister on his back. I have a small bag, and we were traveling by night and sleeping by day in the forest. Why? It is because, again, the Polish the Polish farmers shoot us. If we go by day, they were shooting. So we continue this 400 kilometers until we reach the Czech border. But it was a very surprising change. When we cross the Czechoslovakian border, the behavior of the people and the guards were very friendly. It was very strange for us. Not only that, when we entered the small town, first town in Czechoslovakia, the people, citizens, they come out to the balconies and open the windows, and they started to throw on us flowers and apples. It was amazing. You know, when I appear before children, I tell them, hear good this story, because we can be easily to hate everybody. Everybody who is against us, anti-Semite and so on. It is, in many places, it is right. Yes, many people are anti-Semites, many people are against, but not all the people. There are people which are friends of us. And hear me good, I said to the children, and keep in your mind that not everybody hated us. And I will come back to this point when I will speak about RTB and Tom Dale when we come to Exodus story. So we stay in this town, beautiful town, for 2 weeks. And then now the escape movement was free to expose themselves. They brought us to the railway station, and we were boarding a normal passengers train. We started with the train, we crossed the Austrian border. There was a part which we were afraid again. It was in the Russian occupation part of Austria, near Vienna, and we were ordered to be silent, not to speak Russian, and not to go out from the train. Later on, we stopped in a terrible place, Mauthausen, a death camp. We will stay there for a few days, and we sleep in the camp, and it was terrible what people have seen there. I cannot forget it. It was terrible. But after a few days, we boarded again, and we arrived at the Austrian-German border in the American occupation zone. We have to go down from the train to cross. There was a small river, a bridge, and on the other side, the Americans. I remember a very interesting episode. The American soldiers take us, the children, on their hands, give us candies. One, a big American soldier, took me on his hand, and give me a candy. Now, but what I have done, I take out my handkerchief and I began to whip his face. He was black, and I thought that he was dirty from coal, like the people in the train, in the coal train. But the soldiers, they laughed when they have seen what is going on, and later on I understand that there are people with skin different than ours. That I have no idea about this before. We entered a camp, not a bad one. It was called Einring, and people told me that it was a camp of the private air force of Hitler. Above this was a place which is called the Eagle Nest. It was a Hitler's on the mountain a place which he was hiding there many times, and he has a private air force, which and the barracks, it was from wood of this camp, was to his pilots. So we were placed in this camp. The conditions were not bad, although it was one room to every family. It wasn't so, it was not luxury, but it wasn't, there were good food in this camp, and there was almost normal life. Parties, youth movements, schools, quarrels, football team, theater team, a hall from movies, everything was. And I remember that I was mobilized to a youth movement. You know, my stepfather, he was socialist, so it was some kind of Zionist socialist movement. And I was a member. It was very nice. There was school, and I was attended the first class. Well, again, I was 2 years older, but I didn't know. And I was always small, so it wasn't a big difference. So it was normal to see me among children younger than me, 2 years. And we started to study, and especially Hebrew. We have a lady, a teacher from Lithuania. She learned in a Hebrew seminar, and she told us, now look, children, you are speaking 20 languages. Yeah, I'm not interested anymore in any of your languages. You will speak Hebrew, only Hebrew. And she started to teach us Hebrew. And therefore, I know Hebrew. Before I arrived in Israel, I know Hebrew, and it helps me a lot to acclimatize myself to the children and to them. That time I remember an episode that 2 children in the class, in the middle of the, started to quarrel. And the teacher shouted on them, stop quarreling in Yiddish, quarrel in Hebrew. And so it was school. So it was youth movement, but there was also a street life, let us say so. Every day after school, we gathered together a small group of children from 6 to 16. And our hobby was to go to the German villages to frighten the Germans, because there was rumors that a group from Israel arrived, and they are finding Nazi criminals and execute them in the forest. The Germans were very afraid, and we sometimes enter the pub, and the elder people, they wanted beer, and they were sitting with the legs like this on the table, like American soldiers, and ordered beer, and all the people, audience, all the people, customers and waiters were silent, no word, like you can hear a fly. They give them the beer, drinking, of course. We go where no one paid, nothing. We wanted out, and we go back. So one day we go back to the camp, very happy after these adventures. And one of the children find near the railway, we went along a railway. He found a door of metal on the ground. He opened this, and then we have seen staircase going down to a cellar. We go down, and we find a beautiful place with a lot of electronics of that time, phones, black phone, devices and numbers, and so we began to play with this to cut down the phone, and we take it. Then when we, from the distance, we have seen that there is some event in the camp, something. When we arrived, we were met by 3 police organizations: the Jewish police of the camp, German police of the villages, and American military police. And the head of the camp was shouting on us, and what have we done? We paralyzed all the transport of trains in southern of Germany. It was a communication center. So we have a punishment not to go out again from the camp and to stay at home 2 weeks. But for me, it was only 1 week. Why? Because midnight, I was wakened in the room of our family, long white sheet, and a photographer stand, not like this, the old-fashioned big photograph making photos. What is this? Now we have to do again false passport. We are going tomorrow to Israel, the land of Israel. It was some magic expression. We are going to Israel. It was electrifying. So at the morning, I ran quickly to the school. It was June or end of May, 47. I got a photo, but not the certificate. There was the study continue. So I have the photo from the class, my class. We boarded a convoy of American military trucks, also stolen by the escape movement, with passports of Greek refugees coming back to Greece. And we are given Greek names, which I never remember, because the convoy has to pass many inspection points, because it was after the war. And every such a place, we have to go down from the truck, and the guard read the names. I have never remembered my Greek name. It was terrible. I have pushes when my name was read by but the commanders of the escape, they have another kind of passport. They do not need this passport. They have alcohol bottles, vodka and whiskey, American dollars, and boxes of American cigarettes. At that time, this 2-3 passport, it was the best one. They push it to the guard, and the guards began to smile and open the gate, and we cross the German-French border also, and we stop few kilometers before the Mediterranean for a few days. Why? This is something from historical background. In the United States, the Haganah, the organization, Ben-Gurion, they bought an old river ship, which was going in the Chesapeake Bay from New York to Norfolk. They made reparations and mobilized young Jewish American boys. Some of them were veterans of the war, some are younger. They brought them about 15 people to operate the ship, together with 5 commanders from Israel, commander of the operation, and the captain, navigator, not one man which was speaking by, I don't know, wireless phones and the radio operated, and so on. And they crossed the Atlantic Ocean, very difficult, with such a ship which a flat bottom, which is from wood, making from wood. But they managed to cross the Atlantic and they entered the Mediterranean. However, the British intelligence know exactly what is the purpose. So they try to press. First, the ship has to stop at the Italian port to have us in Italy. But Italian government was afraid from British, so they do not allow the ship to anchor near Italian shore. So after few days, after some days, when we are staying and waiting near the sea, the ship find a place, a small port near Marseille. And then in the middle of night we were awakened, and again trucks, small rain was raining, and it was the 9 or 10 of June 1947. We arrived at the port. It was an amazing moment. Even before there was a total strike in France. All the unions, trade unions, were from the Catholic to the Communist. All of them were striking. But when the people from organization here from Israel told them what is the reason why we have to move quickly, they give a special license to our convoy, and a man from the committee of the strike sit in the first truck, and we were the only convoy which was allowed at this night to move on the road. Again, it was an evidence that we have friends, also that we are not alone. And when we reached the shore of Set, it was called the port, small port, it was amazing. It was very electrifying atmosphere. So many children, orphans, in special groups, youth movements, all were excited by boarding, singing heroic songs in Hebrew mainly. Heroic song with happiness, optimism. We are going, we are doing this, we are going to Israel, we are starting new life. It was beautiful. And therefore, when we boarded, and the conditions on the ship was not very good, very small place, every family has, in a small cabin, many families, nobody care. Nobody care. A man from Israel, one of the commanders, told us, look, 7 days of sailing, you have to manage with these conditions. So he told me, don't be worried, we shall manage, no problem. But there was a problem, another problem. The French, the pressure of the British intelligence, the British government. And finally, the commissioner of the port told our commander, look, if you are not escaping this night, we shall have to stop you. In the morning, all the people will go down back. Now it was a very, very tense moment. It was impossible to go out a big ship from this narrow port. We need a boat which will carry the ship. And there was a boatman which was hired by a lot of money, but he escaped. Until the midnight, he didn't appear. So the captain, which was called Ike, he decided, he told the commander, Yossi Harel, I will take the ship out. We were sleeping, we were dreaming, but all this drama is going on when he started to maneuver with this big ship in the narrow port. Once he even hit a stone, and it was difficult to push out the ship from. But finally, when we waked in the morning, I go out to the balcony and I have seen the sea all around us. It was the first time which I see such a sight. Odessa has a sea, but I was always on the shore. I always see the city. Here, water around us, but not only water. A British military aeroplane was above, making circles, and a British warship was in front of us. We have a convoy. Every day, one ship more. When we're traveling, one ship more. And I will tell you some episodes. And first, when we arrived in front of the shores of Malta, arrived a big warship, a British warship named Checkers. On the Checkers was a young sailor, 70.5 years old. He was serving on the Checkers as a boy which was training himself to be a seaman. Now, in 2015, Rosie and her friends from the RTB organized in Haifa port a session, a meeting between people which want to repair the breach between Jewish people and the British, to ask forgiveness from us, the Mapilim, the passengers on the ship which were attacked by the British Navy. I was among the people which were there after some conversation by phone with Rosie. And there was one, and there was also one of Lord Simon reading was there, and some people from England, Mapilim, and it was very, very exciting, very impressive. Every family, we got from the British people a Bible, because there was an event of confiscating Bibles in one of the ships. I will come to it later. But there was a special thing for me. From a British colonel, Richard Kemp, was one of the speakers. And he read two letters of two soldiers which were serving on the battleships, which attacked the ships, the immigrants, the Mapilim. One of them, of the two, was a soldier named Tom Daly, which served on the Checkers and which attacked our ship Exodus. I was attracted because one of my thoughts all the time was I want to meet a British soldier, which I want to ask him what was his feelings, what did he mean about all these events and so. And this, I told Rosie, I want to meet Tom Dale. Okay, so Rosie and her friend, they invited a group of Israelis from many ships to visit England. And along this visit, it was at 2016, I was also again with another Israeli friend in England, but this was the first time. And they took me to the house of Tom Dale, which one of the group of this RTB called Verity, she was a neighbor of Tom Dale. And we come to the house of Tom Dale, and we exchange, it was very exciting. We exchanged memories, we exchanged presents. I give him a medal of Exodus, and I told him that we refused to be enemies then. Now we are ready to be friends now. And he gave me a very special photos which he has done from the checkers to the Exodus, very rare, very special, and this also I tell the children when I meet them again an evidence that not everyone was against us. Also among the soldiers, I will come to the battle. Not all of them were bad people. Some of them wanted to be good to us. They have to obey of the government. So the travel and the Exodus for the adults, it was very anxious. They were anxious. They know that there will be a battle. They started to make defense. It was not allowed to use firearms at all. So they cans and boxes and wood and everything which was good to use as a weapon. An episode I remember about the captain. What was the personality of a captain in such a ship? Every day we children, we sit down in the lobby of the ship and hear transmissions from Israel, songs and command and so on. One day we stayed in 2 rows, and from a distance arrived a young man with sandals, shorts, dressed a shirt outside, a big forelock. He looked like a hippie, I don't think. And all the children show, this is the captain, Ike. He was 23 years old, and he was the captain of such a complicated operation. So you can imagine. But we were close to the shores of Israel when the ship was called President Warfield from United States, and she was sailing under the flag of Honduras, false also, bought by the Haganah. As we were close, one day before arriving at the shores of Israel, the flag of Honduras was put down. Our flag was Tom Dale make photo of this special event, and only I'm sorry that it was that time not a movie, not a video, because there was a singing of a tikva, and there was exposed only the name of the ship, Exodus 1947. It was a very, very special moment, and two of the photos of Tom Dale are documenting this special point. However, the commanders from Israel, they have a plan that since the ship has a flat bottom and the British destroyers are deep in the water, that the method will be to float in the international waters along the shore and immediately to break eastward and to put the ship on the sand with its flat bottom. And then people from the organization will come and take us away. This was the program, a good program. However, the British know about this program. They have the code, they hear the transmission, and they know what is going on, and therefore they attacked us in the international. Maybe it is another man. So when we arrived, all his family was there, waiting for me. And they show me 4 photos in which this man is named Charlot. I thought that he is Moroccan, he was from Tunis. For us it was North Africa, the same. They show me 4 photos in which Charlot is young man among friends. And on the 3 of the 4, I put my finger on Charlot. The 4 also, after some hesitation, I find him, and it was evidence exactly that this is the man. There is no doubt. His son is living half of the time in Israel, half time in France. He is a big dealer. I don't know, he organized media. There was a journalist from Israel Hayom. There was a television, the second channel was there. And they documented, and it was transmitted in the Holocaust Day in the second channel, 1920, 2 years ago. But it was not enough, because in this event, I told a son of Charlot, look, your parents were heroes. Their story is not known. We know the stories of the commanders of the Palmach. We know the stories of the American crew, our Holocaust. Where are your parents? Let us do a project. We call this, I give the name, From Casablanca to Hamburg. As it means it is a metaphor, not all of from the story of the North African group on Exodus. And we decided, we worked very difficult, and I designed the movie, and we all participated, and we have an event in Sukkot, in Beta Palmach in Tel Aviv, and after, now we are going from place to place, from place to place. Next place is school, will be this man, a school in Ashdod, and then in Eilat, in Jerusalem, we show all the story of the North African people on the Exodus. Well, again, it was a by-side story. Now, we continue. We boarded. The conditions, as I told you, were terrible. I have scurvy. I was ill. No vegetables, no fruit, no vitamin C. It was terrible. I was almost going to die. What happened? The ship was not going to Cyprus. They were going west. And then we know that the British foreign minister decided to bring us back to France. For me, it was a salvation, because when we arrived at the French coast, we have fruit and vegetables, supplies, and therefore I recovered. I have 41 degree. I was almost going to die. But I was saved by the supplies from France, vegetables and fruits. There was a psychological war between the British government and us that we do not want to go down. In the French court, we say no. We are not going down by our own will any place, only Israel. There was a leader of us, which was not in our ship, but his transmissions go from place to place, and he told us not go down, not to go, and everybody were resisting to go down. The French government sent a delegation, and they offered us everything, accommodation, work, citizenship, but in one condition: you are going by your own will, no pressure from the British. Oh, the people said thank you to the French government, but we are not going down. We are going down only in Israel. After 3 weeks, the British Foreign Minister Bevin has done his second mistake. First mistake was to take us to France, not to Cyprus. Because if we go to Cyprus, all the story was finished. By the travel, all the world was full with stories of Exodus, of the suffering of the people. It was the time that in Israel was the committee of the United Nations, which they have to decide if the Jews has the right to have a land, independent state or not. And when Exodus arrived at Haifa, one of our activists, Abba Evan, which was later on a foreign minister, he invited the committee to see. And they were looking, and they were terribly impressed. And now Bevin announced, if you are not going down in France 24 hours, we take you back to Germany, to Hamburg. It was a big shock to the people, most of them Holocaust survivors, to go back to Germany. In Germany, of course, it was a British occupation area, and they can use violence by force to put us down. It was terrible. And people, it was nightmares, shouting in the night. But a boat with the commander of the Haganah in France was traveling around us in the morning and told us, don't be afraid, we are accompany you wherever you go, and we promise you that you will be from the first to be back in Israel. When we will be able to do it, you will be the first. And this promise was fulfilled completely. Now, but nothing helped. At that time, we were desperate, and the ships were going to Gibraltar Straits, and the Atlantic Ocean was a terrible waves. August in the Atlantic is a very bad time, and many people were sick. And I remember an episode that a teacher, a man which presented himself as a teacher in Hebrew, he collected some children and tell us, come up to the deck. We arrived at the open air. He organized us in rows. He gave us notes, book notes, and pencils, and he started to dictate us Hebrew lesson when everybody put his book note on the back of his friend in front. Now, some of the British soldiers stand around, and they were terribly surprised. And the teacher told us what he's speaking. They told each other that if a nation which has some such children will never be defeated. So we arrived in Hamburg, and the military police of the British, by violence, take most of the people down. Our ship was not, we have a command not to resist. When they put a bomb in the ship, but the British soldiers discovered. But we go down without resistance, other ships go with resistance. What makes us very angry is not the violence which were used to take people down, but the port of Hamburg was full of Germans sitting on rail cabins and looking at like a show, a big show, how Jewish people are humiliated again and taken by force. This was something which people were terribly angry about this. But after we go down, they put us in a train and brought us to 2-3 detention camps. We were, because our ship do not show resistance, we were taken to a better than other camps. Also, again, the barracks like the Einring in American area, it was in a British near the city of Lübeck. And there was, again, normal life. Okay, we were surrounded by wires and guards, but there were many demonstrations because the British command transmitted by speakers, loudspeakers, again and again, a suggestion to go, you can go back to France. If you want, we'd give you back. There was a demonstration and we started to cut the wires of the speakers by throwing on them metal plates. And well, but finally arrived the 29th of November. The decision which all the media which surrounded Exodus people, us, from the battle to France, to Hamburg, and transmitted the pictures all over the world, it was a critical contribution to the solution of the United Nations, which was not only 3 votes more. And it was decided to divide the country into Arab and a Jewish state. There was big celebrations all the night and the day with children from the school. I was in 2nd class. There was a school. I attended the 2nd class, and we go out to make. Also, we gathered in the big hall, and there was songs and performances and also speakers which tell us that we have our share in the decision, which was in the United Nations. The British lost motivation. The guards disappeared. The camp was open, was free. But still, it was, the British government still has the control on Israel. So we were one night organized again photographs, another false document, this time Polish tourist. Polish tourist, I do not know any word in Polish. And my mother's son. And at the night, some ambulances of the British Army stalled by the escape movement were waiting for us in the gate. They push us 10 by 10 to any ambulance, and we made all the way back from North Germany through the inspection point, through the German-French border. finally we arrived in Marseille, not in a small port, in a main port. We boarded a French tourist ship, and in 31 of December we arrived again after 1.5 year travel from April 46 to 31 to December 47. We arrived in Haifa. Now what is the small episode, the epilogue, that the passport, Polish passport, expired after 2 weeks. We were staying in Haifa in a hotel, small hotel. The Haganah has a blank identity cards of the British mandate. So they put our names, again a false document, and with this document we traveled to Tel Aviv. Still, I have seen some British soldiers, and now, but it is a false document. When there was a declaration of independence of the 15th of May, my parents, no, we have no paper, we have no documents. What shall we do? They take the false British document to the command of the IDF, the Israeli army, which the land was under a martial law at the war. It was the war, and they have a stamp of Israeli Defense Army on a false British document, which make it a temporary identity card, one of the first which has been in the state of Israel. This is the end of my story.
Arie, I have to say, you have a life of miracles, one miracle after another, so many that you can't even count. I am so honored to have been able to hear you tell your story.
Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, you have shared a very important story. And the message that you give, that there are always people who will care about you and like you, that not everybody's going to come against you. It's an important message for all of us to remember.
Yes. I do not blame people which they do not accept my point of view. They say that everybody is against us, and so I do not blame them. It is their experience. They suffered a lot. But I think that I have another point of view. I think that they suffer even a post-suffering, because to hate, to think that everybody is hating us is not a good message to the young generation. I think, but I cannot blame them. Maybe they have not the same experience which I have. I was speaking from my personal experience, not it wasn't a general.
Yes, yes. No, you've had amazing experiences and quite a memory too, I have to say. You have a very good memory.
Well,
but I
well, I was elder 2 years, so
yeah.
because I know this, I have a problem. People, many people, not all, many people do not believe me. They do not believe they are in such age. How can you remember? Impossible. I spoke to a psychologist and I told my story. She said, don't be worried, you are telling the truth. And it was before I know the true age. You are telling your truth. This is the truth. This is your impressions. You are not fabricating anything.
Yes.
When in the 1916, I realized that I'm 2 years older than my age, all the confusions, all the questions were finished. Everybody now understands that I was in the age which everybody can remember, not only me.
Yes, yes. No, I think you have an amazing, amazing life experience to tell and to share it. I thank you very much for sharing it with us. Truly, it has been an honor. And we will do our very best to make sure that people understand what really happened with the Exodus and with your entire experience. Thank you. Thank you again. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, everyone. And be sure and listen to this again. I think you'll get a whole lot more than you got before. Thanks.